Hi, I'm Mark Kenyon here in the St. Louis Guru Garage. Today we want to talk about how to properly do a cylinder leak down test. My assistant Joe here is going to help us with this test, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first step in doing your cylinder leakage test would be to remove the spark plug, gain access to the cylinder. So we're going to remove this boot. We'll go ahead and get in here and remove our spark plug. Once we have the plug removed, we can actually put our test hose in there and air up the cylinder. Okay. So we got our plug out. Our test hose has the same thread as our spark plug, so we want to carefully thread that into the hole, not to damage the spark plug threads in the cylinder head. And then we're going to just turn it until we can get it seated with hand pressure. Okay, now we've got that seated in there, snugged up. Our next step would be to find top dead center. Now I'm going to have my assistant Joe here crank the motor over, and I'm actually going to put my finger or my thumb over this hole right here and feel for the air coming out. That will tell me when both valves are closed and when the piston's starting to approach top dead center. We want to stop as close to top dead center as possible. So as we rotate the motor around, we're just feeling for air movement in here, and we can actually hear it when it gets close. Notice that little puff of air. Got a little louder there. So it's nice and easy right there, Joe. Let's try it. Now you'll also see that we're going to switch tools. We're actually going to put a breaker bar on the crankshaft. The reason for that is that the motor may not be perfectly at top dead center, and we don't want the engine to spin because of the ratchet on there. It could cause injury to you or to the vehicle itself. So now at this point, I want to connect my gauges to my actual test hose. So let's go ahead and get this connected. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put pressure, line pressure from our airline in here on this gauge. And we're going to regulate this gauge at 100 psi. So our left gauge is our inlet air pressure. Our right gauge would be our outlet pressure. This is the air that's going into the cylinder. Okay. If we have 100 psi on our inlet gauge and we have a perfectly sealed cylinder, we would have 100 psi on our second gauge or outlet. No manufacturer is going to make a motor that seals that well. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to compare our 100 psi of inlet pressure to what our outlet is. And at that point, we're going to want to see something less than 10% leakage. Okay? Another good idea is to back your regulator off so when you hook your line pressure in, you don't get that big shot of air wanting to move the motor. There again, you can cause some damage, physical damage. Okay, so now we have it hooked up. Let's go ahead and start our air pressure. Notice as it climbs, we're going to go to 100. On this gauge right here. Get right there at 100 psi. And notice we're at about 90 on our outlet gauge, which means we got about 10% leakage. 10% is within our acceptable range. If that was less than 10%, that would be acceptable. If it was more than 10%, we would actually want to start to diagnose where the problem's at. We'd want to listen to our coolant hose right here to see if we have air coming out, which would simulate a leaking head gasket. We might also want to go here to our air inlet, okay, for the motor. We'd listen here to see if we got an intake valve that might be leaking. All right. The exhaust valve that would be leaking could be heard through the exhaust pipe, coming out the back. If it was a piston seal, ring, something inside of there, we'd actually hear the air escaping through the crankcase. In this case, we've got a pretty well sealed up motor. Notice now we're at about 92 to 93%, which means we really only have a leakage of about 5 to 6%.